Welcome! In this series of short videos, we will give an introduction to those who have never used PowerBasic before or even considered taking up programming. Today we will look at arrays and how they let you store and manipulate data. In our previous videos, we have looked at storing information or data in variables, either text or numeric. While this works well for individual items of data, there will come a time in your development of applications where you will want to start storing and manipulating lists of related data. While this could be done in individual variables, many programming languages use a construct known as an array to make this task easier. Let us consider a shopping list and how we could use an array to store this kind of data. We have a list of 4 items and we want to store that in our application. Putting this into an array will allow us to reference the data using an element number. Arrays start by default at element 0, although you can customize this to start at any number you like. So element 1 would hold orange juice, element 2 would hold onions, and so on. This is a single dimension array where the element number is the row number. We can go further and store more information in a second dimension. For example, the quantity of each item that you wish to get. Again, the second dimension starts by default at 0, although you can customize this. This second dimension is the column number. So in this array, specifying both elements of row and column will return the specific information. Let's have a look at some code to illustrate this. I've loaded up the PowerBasic console compiler, but the code we're going to show will work just as well within the Windows compiler, since the array handling is exactly the same in either version. So here in the console compiler, all we're doing is we're changing the foreground colour to a light green colour and leaving the background as black. So if we're going to create an array, the first thing we need to do is to tell the application how big our array is actually going to be and of what type. We can do this using the dimension command, the dim command. That's followed by the name of the array we wish to dimension, the elements of the array, how big it's going to be, and what type of the array. In this case, all the information we're going to be holding in this array is string, basically text. I've set the elements to be from 1 to 10. If I just put 10 in these brackets, it would have gone from 0 to 10, but we're starting at element 1. I've named the array specifically for our shopping list. Now, it's part of my own personal preference to put a prefix at the beginning of the name of any variable, be it an array or a normal variable, to say what kind of information that array actually holds. In this case, A for array and str for string. So now that we've told the application the extent of an array, how much information is it going to hold? In this case, it will hold a maximum of 10 pieces of information. We can now assign values to each of those elements. We can do that quite easily by using the arrayAssign command. The arrayAssign command followed by the name of the array and 2 brackets, then equals, and then a list, which is comma delimited, of each of the elements you wish to put into this single dimension array. So we're putting the 4 items on our shopping list. Orange juice will be the first element, onions the second, and so on. Now, although we've created the array saying it can hold a maximum of 10 pieces of information, we're only giving it 4. The other 6 elements of this array will be blank. We can actually see what's in that array now by printing it out to our console. The console compiler is quite good for demonstrating these programs, as we don't have to worry about any windows. So we're using the print command to print out the name of the array with element 1, and that will print out orange juice, then element 2, 3 and finally 4. So if we run our application now, we'll see that the 4 elements have been printed out. The text we put into each element has appeared on the screen. Normally you would not put 4 lines of code in to print this out. After all, if the array held 100 elements, then that would be a lot of typing. So what we can do is use a for next loop. This is a loop that will loop round all elements we wish to print out in the array and do them one at a time. So to do that, we're going to create a local variable which is along. This will be our row counter. And then for each value of the row counter, between the values of 1 and 4, we're going to print out our shopping list. And rather than hard coding the value of the element we wish to access, we're going to be using this variable, which at the first iteration will have the value 1, and then on the next iteration it will go to 2, then 3, then 4. Then finally, we'll tell PowerBasic that we want to use the next command, which will increment the value in long row by 1 until it gets to 4. So if we comment out these lines of code and we run our application now, we should get exactly the same result, which we do. So that's a single dimension array. If you have a very large shopping list with several hundred items in it, it's just a matter of populating them all. Then you can use a for next loop for each element in the array to do something with it. So how do we handle a multi-dimension array? That is an array with more than a single dimension. As we saw earlier, we could store a quantity value for each of the items on our shopping list. So let's try that first. We will dimension a new array, shopping list 2. And in its row and column counter, we're going to put 2 sets of numbers, 1 to 10 for the rows and 1 to 2 for the columns. And to make it easier to see what's happening, we'll put the information in there one bit at a time. So now we are populating our array, shopping list 2, row 1, column 1, with the value of orange juice. And we're populating the same array, row 1, column 2, with the value 2. Now we're putting this in as a string, a piece of text, not as a number. In the arrays that we're using at the moment, the entire array will either be a string or one of the numeric types. String arrays are very useful for handling lists of text. Numeric arrays are very useful for handling lists of numbers. So for the purposes of what we're doing at the moment, we'll just continue to use a string array. So we can quite easily put the remainder of our shopping list items into this array, with the first element of the array being the row number and the second element being the column number. So we populated all 4 items with their quantities. So we can print out the detail in that array by using the same for next loop. In this case, we're printing out shopping list 2, and we're using the long row variable to specify the row number, and we're specifying the column number just by putting the number 1 in. And we're displaying column number 2, which is our quantity, by doing exactly the same, but specifying column 2 on long row. So if we tried running that now, we would see we're printing out our original shopping list and our second shopping list. The second shopping list has both the name of the item and the quantity. So this is a very brief introduction to what we can do with string arrays. The approach to take with numeric arrays is exactly the same. Rather than dimensioning the array as string, you would dimension it as a long, as a double, as a currency, or one of the other numeric types. And the information you're putting in would purely be numbers. To find out more information about the handling of arrays and how they can be used within PowerBasic, there are a number of other videos you can have a look at. If you go to the GSF software website, which there will be a link in the description below, you'll get a list of all the recently added videos. If you go to the by keyword and press the Ctrl and F to do a search on the page, put a hash in, and then the word array, it will jump to all the videos that have that tag. So you see there are a number of videos already created which handle arrays. For example, array manipulation part 1 is probably a good one to start at. There's also part 2. There's also information on sorting information within arrays, both strings and numbers, and string and array handling. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in finding out more about arrays, to work your way through these videos. They should probably answer most of your questions. But that's it for today. Thank you for watching.